Sukuna is called the King of Curses for a reason. Here's the full breakdown of every power he has, starting with the part most people skip past. Before Sukuna ever uses a technique, his base body is already a problem. His physical strength, speed, and durability outclass named sorcerers, who rank at the top of the series power scaling without him lifting a cursed finger. He can casually block strikes from top-tier fighters, shrug off damage that would end most opponents outright, and move fast enough that his attacks read as a blur, even to trained eyes. Everything below this is stacked on top of a body that's already overpowered on its own. Part of why that base body is so dangerous goes back to who he was 1,000 years ago. During the Heian era, when sorcery was at its strongest across the entire population, Sukuna was a human sorcerer who fought and killed the era's best fighters one after another. When he finally died, his body wouldn't decay, and his cursed energy refused to fade. Instead of vanishing, it split into 20 fingers, each one holding a fragment of his full power. Those fingers were sealed away and passed down for centuries, but every one of them functions as a container capable of holding him again in full. Anyone who consumes even one finger risks being possessed, and the more fingers a single vessel absorbs, the closer that vessel gets to becoming Sukuna completely. That's exactly what happens with Yuji Itadori, whose body ends up hosting him after swallowing one of the fingers, giving Sukuna a modern host to operate through without needing to build a new body from nothing. His signature technique is called Cleave, and its counterpart is Dismantle. Both are invisible slashing attacks that cut through anything in their path, and the terrifying part is that they're silent and often unseen until the wound already exists. Cleave works on a flat plane, Dismantle on a more complex three-dimensional path, and Sukuna can fire either one with barely any wind up. A fight against him regularly comes down to sensing an attack that has no visual warning at all, and that gap in reaction time is what gets most of his opponents cut before they even register that he's moved. Then there's his Domain Expansion Malevolent Shrine, and this is where his power jumps to a different level entirely. A domain expansion traps an opponent inside a sealed space where the user's technique becomes overwhelming and, in most cases, guaranteed to land. Malevolent Shrine surrounds the target with thousands of blades that continuously slash from every angle for as long as the domain holds. Anyone caught inside without a way to counter it gets cut apart in seconds. Surviving a full hit from it takes either a precisely timed counter or a rival domain to clash against it, and both are rare on their own. The Shibuya Incident is the clearest example of what that domain actually does in practice. When Sukuna unleashes Malevolent Shrine there, it doesn't just threaten the sorcerers fighting him directly, it devastates a massive stretch of the city around him, and multiple experienced fighters who get caught anywhere near its range are cut down almost instantly. That single sequence is often used as the moment that reset how the entire cast and the audience understood what Sukuna was actually capable of once he stopped holding back. Inside that same domain, Sukuna has an even more specific finishing move called Playful Cloud. It's a single, precisely aimed slash-release once the target is within the domain's guaranteed hit range, and it's treated as close to an automatic kill. The domain does the trapping, Playful Cloud does the finishing, and together, they form a kill combination built to close a fight the instant the domain lands. Sukuna isn't limited to slashing either. He also commands Divine Flames, sometimes called Fire Arrow, a technique that launches concentrated fire strong enough to level city blocks in a single shot. His kit isn't one trick executed perfectly. It's a completely separate offensive option that can be just as devastating depending on the situation, and it forces opponents to prepare for two entirely different kinds of attacks instead of one. On top of all of that, Sukuna can use Reverse Curse technique, the same category of healing ability that lets top sorcerers repair injuries mid-fight. Combined with his already massive physical durability, it means outlasting him through attrition rarely works. Wearing him down usually just buys him time to patch the damage and come back at full strength. Stack that healing on top of a body built from 1,000 years of surviving the deadliest fighters of his era, and the margin for error against him gets very small, very fast. So with all of that stacked together, what actually gives him trouble? In practice, it's rarely a single attack. It's usually a combination of things landing at once. Another domain expansion that can contest Malevolent Shrine directly, an ambush that catches him with a technique built specifically to counter his slashes, or overwhelming numbers forcing him to split his attention. Straightforward brute force fights against him tend to end quickly and badly for the other side. The times he's actually been pushed involve someone finding a specific gap in his kit, not simply hitting harder than he does, base stats that already outclass most fighters. A body built from a 1,000-year history of killing the best sorcerers of his time. Invisible cutting techniques that are nearly impossible to see coming. A domain that guarantees a kill if it lands. A separate fire technique as a backup, and healing to erase the damage that does get through. That's the full picture of why Sukuna carries the title King of Curses, and why beating him usually requires a very specific answer, not just more power. Subscribe and comment for more anime lore.